Okay, thank you, Randy. At this time, we're going to be opening up to questions from reporters here at NASA
I'd
Dryden.
like to get some of those details.
Yeah, and excuse me, as I said, I just saw basically the real-time data on the displays. We were starting to do the data playbacks so we could relook at some of this stuff when I had to come down here. So what I can tell you is we reached, the engine test occurred at slightly under Mach 10, but it's, you know, in the realm of where we thought we'd be. We thought we'd be slightly below Mach 10. Let's see. That was about 10 seconds of fuel on time, 20 seconds total with the engine open and air flowing through the engine. We do a post-fuel tear, we call it, where we don't run fuel, so we get the engine forces, the vehicle forces in moments as with just the engine open, and then we turn the fuel on, and we have several fuel levels that we run to get the forces and moments and how the vehicle behaves under different throttle settings, basically. So the total time was, the engine test was 20 seconds. The fuel time was about 10 seconds.
So another world record?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I think.
Okay, I saw a hand over here, and I believe Mike Dornheim was second up.
Mike Dornheim with Aviation Week. Were you expecting thrust greater than drag in this flight, and what did you see in the data?
Okay, again, very preliminary, just barely looked at the data, but this vehicle, let me just start back up a little bit. This vehicle started, when we started the program, we had to use a concept vehicle as a starting point. We used a vehicle that was designed actually by McDonnell Douglas, now part of Boeing, that was a Mach 10 cruise vehicle. So saying that, the vehicle was set up to cruise at Mach 10. We wanted to accelerate on this test, but our prediction showed because the vehicle was set up as a cruise vehicle, it was going to be very difficult to accelerate. What it looks like, and I don't want to go too far here because it's barely looked at the data, it looks like we basically cruised. We basically had thrust equals drag, and that's we had some predictions that said we'd get acceleration, and some predictions that said we wouldn't, and we're basically in the middle there. So basically, like I said before, performed pretty much like we expected.
Okay, further questions? Yes, over here.
Thanks, Matt Wall, New York Times. Why didn't the landing gear deploy? What was the maximum speed reached?
I believe it was, and I don't have the number, the maximum speed reach was actually on the boost. Before we separate from the booster, we actually reached the peak speed, and I think it was around 9.8 Mach number. And then I believe the engine test, and we got to confirm this later, but I believe it was around 9.6 Mach number.
Thank you.
And by the way, we did actually, in one of the original designs, have landing gear. The vehicle was going to flip over on its back and skids deploy, and we were going to try to land it, but that got taken out of the program early on.
Okay, I believe we have a question over here.
Okay, Brian Webb, KCLU Public Radio. At the exact instant of scramjet shutdown, what was, to the best of your knowledge, the Mach number of the vehicle, and what does that translate to in statute miles per hour?
As I said, it was about Mach 9.6. And that's about 9,600 feet per second, so that's about 2 miles per second. It's on the order of 2 miles per second, a little lower than that. So what, 7,000 miles an hour or something like that? Oh, there we go. Say the info.
6,500, maybe 6,600.
6,600.
6,600?
Yeah, that's a rough calculation.
Hey, Randy, Mach 10 is 6755. Standard atmosphere.
It was a standard day.
Yeah.
To
very close.
For us to get the actual velocity in miles per hour and stuff, we're gonna have to look at the data a little bit more to give you that. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you any better than that right now.
The weather balloons.
Okay, I believe we have a question back here. Guy?
Joel, Guy Norris from Flight International. It's a bit of a big picture sort of question, but you mentioned opening the door to the future a bit in your earlier remarks.
Right.
Could you amplify that a bit?
Well, I think what's in store for us in hypersonic air breathing propulsion technology is on the DoD side. I think they're pursuing hydrocarbon scramjets, see if that technology will work. It's a different fuel than hydrogen, so you get different problems to solve. I think the next step that I would like to see at NASA is to take a turbine engine and a Ram scramjet engine, combine those propulsion cycles, and put some hardware together, start testing it, and maybe in a couple of years we can put the budget together to possibly put an airplane around that technology. And so there are a lot of paths you can take from this point, and I think they all lead forward and they all lead to good things. We're just going to have to wait a while. Who knows when it's going to be? It'll be a long time. And like we've commented in the past, it took a long time for once the Wright brothers flew for people to fly across the ocean. It might take that long again for this technology to be applied to a commercial aircraft, but I think someday it will be there. 50, 100 years, who knows? But definitely there's commercial applications.
Jeff Stone from the Milwaukee Journal would like to know why we didn't recover the X-43.
None of us can swim that deep. I'd like to go out and try to find the first one, but that's a different program. But no, I think we wanted to focus on the propulsion technology. We didn't want to solve all the problems of trying to come back and land, and which would add a lot of expense to the program. I think we tried to do this on a pretty tight budget. So and I think that worked out for the best. We had a single focus every day we came to work, and that was to get to Mach 7 and then to get to Mach 10. And we've accomplished all of those program goals, and it's been a very successful program.
Let's see. Could you just get a little bit of weight on what the thing weighs? The research vehicle itself, the hypersonic thing, and then how much of that is tungsten?
I can take that one. I think the vehicle weighed just over 2,000 pounds as it flew. 2,860 is the number that we're getting. We did conduct the weight and balance. Just can't remember up here. I'm looking at the paperwork. The stack that we did launch today with the rocket on board weighed about 43,000 pounds. So pretty heavy stack for a fairly reasonably heavy vehicle.
Mike, follow up?
Tungsten was about.
Just two things. One, how much of that was tungsten?
Oh, right.
And then the second one was in the future things. There was some mention earlier, someone else is being interviewed, talked about foundational technologies that you'd like to pursue on hypersonics. And could you tell us specifically what is meant by foundational technologies, some examples of that, and why they're of interest?
Go ahead, Randy.
Well, we were in the control room, so we didn't hear all those comments earlier. Number one, the tungsten was about 800 pounds or so of tungsten. We can get you an exact number at some point if you'd like it. I think what's meant by foundational technologies is basically right now it looks like NASA's going to have to step back from a flight program that we've just undertaken like this and go back to more of a basic technology program, I think is what they're talking about. So again, I didn't hear the exact comments, but that's what I would guess it meant.
What would be an example of a foundational technology?
Okay. Examples of foundational technologies are anything from, the most basic would be just combustion experiments where we look at how to build the injection and flame holding system in the engine more to be more robust and more efficient. That'd be kind of one of the more basic type things, up to, you know, ground engine tests. And as Joel mentioned earlier, where we'd really like to head is work on mating turbojets and ramjet scramjets together in a combined cycle system, so that we could develop the technology to be able to take off from the ground under the vehicle under its own power, and accelerate up to Mach 7 or so or higher. And so there's some basic technology involved in the integration of those two engine systems, which is probably one of the areas we'll try to concentrate on quite a bit, if we, you know, pending funding.
I think I would add to that, it takes a lot to integrate the various technologies that go into these vehicles also. You have a lot of subsystems that need to come together and work flawlessly to perform the mission. Instrumentation systems, hydrogen fuel fluid systems, silane systems. You don't necessarily need all those kind of systems in every vehicle you build, but I think we've developed a lot of processes and models that we can use in simulation and ground analysis and prediction tools, and we have validated that those predictions are accurate. And so it gives you the confidence, as I mentioned earlier, to design future vehicles that are shaped like this. You have a foundation to build from in terms of the aerodynamics that you would put into a real-time, 6-degree of freedom simulation, for instance, to predict or to build a 200-foot vehicle as opposed to a 12-foot vehicle. So that's what I would add to that.
I believe we have a comeback question over here.
Okay, Brian Webb, KCLU Public Radio. During the actual scramjet burn, what was the altitude of the X-43? And the second part of the question, what was the actual duration of the scramjet burn?
Yeah, I'll take that. Again, just quick looked at the data. I believe we were slightly above 110,000 feet, like 111,000 feet, somebody told me. And we burned for about 10 seconds of scramjet on. It may have been a little longer than that. I didn't look at the exact, I don't have the exact numbers to tell you.
This sort of reiterates some of the questions that have already been asked, but for the benefit of John Boglin from AJ Space and Science Report, how far down the road before this technology can or will be used or could be used in a single stage to orbit launch vehicle?
I think the technology can be used immediately, hopefully, can start being used in the design of airplanes. And based on the community's inputs, I do know, walking up and down these hallways and talking to some of these contractors, is they've really been waiting for this data for quite a while. So, I think it's for exactly that. And I would say we could probably see this technology being used within 5 years, at least being tested and actually being used in 10 years for DoD type applications.
And in terms of space launch vehicles?
Space launch vehicles, probably a little longer, maybe another 5-10 years beyond that. And I think it's a good time frame.
Yeah, we've been putting together, we put together some roadmaps on developing these technologies. And Dave's right, there's some of the stuff could be used almost immediately, and I think is actually already being incorporated in some of the DoD programs. The space launch applications, what we've done is put together a roadmap which sort of shows an evolutionary approach, where we start with a initial capability with smaller payloads, but available sooner. And I personally believe we could, if we wanted to, we could do this within 10 years or so to have that capability, but that would take a fairly substantial commitment by NASA or some other entity. Then we would, and that would be a 2-stage orbit vehicle. The questioner asked about a single-stage orbit. I think that's farther out. That takes quite a bit more. To do that, we'd have to go. The design work we've done on that in the past says we got to go to at least Mach 15. And today we did Mach 10, and that was very difficult. Mach 15 is quite a bit more than that. So it's not out of the question, but it's probably 20 to 25 years out.